What are your authentically great attributes and characteristics that you currently have that we can work on to develop your own unique style of excellent leadership?
There's often a lot of ego attached to leadership and people do it for the titles, but I think it's all about what legacy you can leave and how much you can get out of everyone and put them on the pedestal.
There are so many ways that you can show up for women's sport and for women in sport.
Welcome to 4TG.
Liz Quinn, welcome to the 4TG podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
You were one of my dream guests when I started this podcast, so I feel very glad that you're here.
I bet you say that to all your guests.
Don't give away my secret. But I'm really excited today to talk about the gap in female coaching, why it still exists, and you yourself having coached at a very high level, and I assume have experienced a lot of these sort of gender bias and stereotypes that you've probably had to overcome in not only sport, but in your own military career as well. So I think you are the perfect guest for this episode, and I can't wait to share all the info that we've got for our listeners.
Looking forward to it.
So handing over to you, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into sport and your career in coaching, higher leadership and things like that.
Well, I was very fortunate to have a very long and meaningful and purpose-driven career in the Navy. You know, throughout that career was given a lot of opportunities to participate in sport as a player, as an administrator and as a coach. You know, Aussie rules has always been my first sporting love. And so I played Aussie rules in the Navy, coached Aussie rules, I managed Aussie rules in the Navy and at the combined services representative level for many years. I was also extremely fortunate to be at Richmond in their AFLW program for the first 6 years of its inception. So extremely fortunate throughout my career to observe high pressure, high stakes environments, both in the military and in sport, and, you know, have a front row seat to some of the best in the business working under pressure and making great decisions and leadership decisions under pressure.
And I assume there are so many transferable skills between military, sport and business.
Absolutely there are. The difference is the stakes, obviously. Yeah. Sometimes the stakes can be a little bit higher. But, you know, the whole notion of performance under pressure and making key decisions and leading people under pressure and in high pressure environments is common across those.
Absolutely. Let's get into you and what sport meant to you growing up, the good, the bad and the ugly.
I loved it. I loved being involved. I was a bit of a tomboy. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My brother James was 4 years older, and I always wanted to play with him and his mates. And we lived in a cul-de-sac, so it was always cricket, you know, down in the end of the cul-de-sac, or kicking footy around, whatever it might have been. But I always wanted to be involved in sport and play. We were very active. We'd stay out until Dad whistled that it was time to come in for dinner. But yeah, just always doing something, always playing, or whether it was an organised kind of a game, or if we're just kicking the footy around or whatever it might be, going down to the park or going down the creek, whatever. So I had quite an active childhood, and I think really early on sort of really understood the value. Maybe you don't sort of understand it in those words as a kid, but the value of team sport in developing kids and their ability to deal with failure, risk, adversity, conflict, all of those sorts of things. I think you learn a lot of those skills through team sport. And so just loved it. And I think my involvement in team sport is what really sort of set me up pretty well to join the team that is the Navy, the broader Defence Force. But you know, just loved it so much, and to be involved in sport as an adult has been just so meaningful, and is a key contributor, I think, to some of the leadership lessons that I've learned and been able to pass on, as well as a healthy existence and well-being and all of those sorts of health benefits of sport. I think there's just so many life lessons that you can learn through sport.
Have you found lots of similarities, I guess, being in that high pressure environment in the military and the correlation between the high performance, what are some of the key, I guess, leadership attributes that you think are most relative to high performance sporting?
Well, I think just that ability to act under pressure, and that comes down to whether it's your decision-making processes that you've learned and that you've got confidence in, whether it's your ability to communicate with your teammates. For my definition of leadership is inspiring willing commitment. So if you're able to inspire the willing commitment of your team and to do that, under pressure, then you're exercising leadership. So you don't need a title to do that. So you don't need to be an appointed leader. You might be a situational leader or anyone who, in a particular set of circumstances, is able to inspire that willing commitment of the rest of the team. Then you're leading. And I think that, as I said, the difference really is in the stakes or the amount of pressure that's being applied at any one time. And typically that pressure comes from whatever the stakes are, whether it's losing a big game, or whether it's feeling like your self-worth is tied to an outcome, or whether it's, something a little bit more serious or sinister. You feel that pressure because the outcome means so much or is so important. And so how you're able to repeat processes such as decision-making processes or communication processes or whatever it might be in order to inspire that willing commitment is really key.
So then, working at Richmond AFLW, what was some of the work that you were doing with the athletes there?
So just really around sort of the whole team understanding where culture comes from and how to develop good culture. Often I'm asked, how do I get good culture? If only it was that easy. But culture's an outcome, right? Culture's an outcome of your values and your behaviours. And so your values are who you are when you're operating at your natural best. So it's not aspirational. Often you go places and you see the set of values on the wall and you look around the place and you think, I can't identify any of those in what you're doing. So it's who you are when you're operating at your natural best is what those values should be. And then the behaviours are the agreed set of standards that the team holds itself to. And the key words there are that the team holds itself to. So coaches or administrators or whoever it might be, they'll come up with rules and say, if you break this, then here's the consequence or whatever. That's a rule. That's not a standard. Standards is what the team hold themselves to. So
do you think too often in sport, the captain or the leader of the team is often given to the best player on the team?
Absolutely. Yes.
And tell me why that's a problem.
Well, I mean, again, it just sort of, it's one of the reasons I started Clutch Leadership, little consultancy I've got operating on the side is because all too often I'd been involved in teams where there'd be either a vote sort of thrust on the players at the last minute to say, oh, don't forget, we've got to vote for the captain today or whatever, and people would look around and look for either the loudest player or the best player or the player with most influence, whatever it might be. And that person would then be voted into this position and be told to go and lead. And not really be given any tools or resources to understand what leadership really is, what's required of a leader in the particular context of a team. Because we can talk about what great leadership is, in theory, or what the best practice is of leaders in different situations throughout the world. But what does the leader of this team that we are in right now need? And those people figuring out how to understand what that is, how they can do it well, what their own strengths are, how they can lead authentically, and really just understanding what their teammates require of them as well. So that's, something that I've been really pleased to be involved with in many teams over the last few years, is just helping their appointed leaders understand just how to lead.
Yes. Yeah. And what do you think is the most underrated leadership skill to have?
Authenticity. I think so many leaders feel like they need to be a certain way because often we learn the most about leadership through observation. And so you might have had a great sporting leader that you grew up playing with or whatever it might be, or that you've seen on TV or read books about, whatever, and you sort of think you need to emulate that person. and you think, well, I need to be this great orator. I need to be able to captivate the team with my words and my pre-game speeches or whatever it might be, and sort of that might not be a genuine strength of yours. And it doesn't mean don't work on it or whatever, but let's play to what your strengths are. What are your authentically great attributes and characteristics that you currently have that we can work on to develop your own unique style of excellent leadership, so that people are telling stories about your leadership instead of, you always thinking, I need to be like this other person or whatever it might be. So not being afraid to be authentic and not thinking that leadership looks a certain way.
Yes.
Again, if you're able to inspire the will and commitment of your teammates in whatever way that's authentic to you, I think that's the most powerful thing.
Yeah. I think we give far too much credit to, the leaders that, as you say, are up in front of the crowd and speaking and inspiring. But for me, myself, I think some of the best leaders I've found lead from behind.
Yeah.
And they're not the outgoing, influencers that you normally think, but it's their ability to have the difficult conversations when they need to be had to get the best out of other people and to be selfless. There's often a lot of ego attached to leadership and people do it for the titles, but I think it's all about what legacy you can leave and how much you can get out of everyone and put them on the pedestal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting point around legacy, like in terms, I sort of think of instead of what legacy I can leave, what inheritance can I leave for someone else, right? Because the legacy is all about me. It's like Liz Quinn did this and that and the other thing. It's like, well, cool, I just did that my way, right? So what inheritance can I leave you for you to then carry on and make your own thing of, right? But absolutely, so many leaders that I think of that have been put on these pedestals, and you sort of go, is that leadership? Is that what the model is? Like, who's watching this and thinking, oh, now I need to be like that, or I'm not a good leader if I don't have that, or I wish I could do that better. Of course we all wish we could do things better, but just seeing someone who you think is a great leader and trying to model that is the quickest way to self-destruction as a leader, because leadership is really hard. It's easy to, to sort of take the accolades of leadership and be the face of the club or whatever it might be. It's a lot harder when, you don't win a game that season, or two teammates break up and everyone picks sides, or a coach is sacked, or whatever it might be. These things that are really real for almost all teams that I've been involved with. There's been some sort of a hiccup or an unplanned sort of bushfire along the way that has required authentic, challengeable leadership to help diffuse a situation, and not enough people have the tools on how to do that, because it's actually, I actually just really liked this position because I get to make a speech at the BNF or whatever it might be. I didn't think it would be this hard, but it can be really challenging, can be really isolating. And so you really need to know yourself and have confidence in your ability to lead in order to lead effectively.
Who is a leader within the sporting realm who you think is severely underrated in how that they show up for themselves and the team?
I don't know that I could come up with a name necessarily, but some of the things that I think are really underrated are some of the attributes of younger teammates. I think sometimes we mistake age with leadership experience, or this person, this is her 9th year of sport at this level, they're really looking to her to lead, and you think, they shouldn't be, or whatever it might be, and we overlook the ability of younger people, or less experienced people, or people from different backgrounds or different experiences, or whatever it might be, diverse cultures. We overlook their ability to inspire the will and commitment of others.
Yeah. And do you think often we can undervalue leadership in terms of we pick the most skilled team, individual superstars, but we don't put enough emphasis on we need a few more leaders out there who might not necessarily be the most skilled, but I think on-field leadership is almost irreplaceable.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I talk a lot, to teams about the importance of followership, right? And that's an aspect we don't talk about enough in my mind. Is we talk a lot about leadership and how important that is. Don't talk enough about followership and how active followership is crucial to teams. And the power of, in particular, what's called the first follower, right? And there's a really great YouTube clip called The Dancing Man, and I encourage anyone to look it up. It's all about followership, right? How just one person doing their thing is a lone nut. But as soon as that first follower gets involved, then everyone thinks, wow, this is really cool. Okay, what's going to happen here? And then, the second follower gets in and suddenly it's a movement, right? A crucial thing really is for those people, for anyone else in a team who's not in a position of appointed leadership, to understand their role as a follower and the importance of followers in team, and that they are actually the crucial ingredient to teamwork, not the leaders themselves.
Yes. And is there transferable situations, having been in the military, where as a follower you have to respect what the leader says and you play your role, because if someone doesn't play their role, there are bigger things on the line?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, know your role, play your role kind of thing is really important. And I think, probably the key difference in the military is that hierarchical situation that is very clearly black and white. You must be predictable to your teammates. And so if I'm relying on you to play your role, that means I know you're predictable to me, because I know exactly what you're going to do. I know how you're going to respond. I know what level of training you've had. I know how you're going to react in certain situations. And that allows me then the freedom and the confidence to play my role as well, because I know it's going to complement your role. And I think that's really important in sport, obviously, as well, is when we learn game plans and playing styles and those sorts of things. The importance of that is that I have the faith in you as my teammate to know that you're not just going to go rogue and do your own thing. You're going to play within a particular game plan. Sure, there'll be individual decision points along the way where you might do this or that or whatever, and they all kind of loosely fit in with, the vibe or the gist of what we're trying to do, and that's cool. But I have the confidence that you know your role and that you're going to play your role, and that allows me then to play my role around you. And so there are some similarities there. Obviously, the stakes can be a little higher, but equally important, I think, in both of those contexts, is just really clearly understanding what you're responsible for, what people are expecting of you, and what the consequences are if you don't do those things.
So I guess it all sort of comes back to trust.
Oh, absolutely. Trust. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It's crucial in anything that requires teamwork or more than one person to affect an outcome, right? Is I trust you to not only act in the best interests of the team, but to know exactly what your role is and to play that role. And if you don't understand that role, that's a coaching responsibility that I need to help you to understand your role, insofar as that you are able to do it within a certain left and right of arc. But to give your teammates the trust that you know exactly what your role is and that you're going to play it. You start to talk about the responsibility of coaches and how coaching's not about you, mate. Game day is players' day. It's not coach indulgement day. It's not how great does the coach speak day. It's not hey guys, listen to this day. It's not master stroke day. Do you know what I mean? It's players' day. If you're doing your job effectively, you could even not rock up on,
that's right,
on game day.
But
too much of coaching, I think, is ego-driven. And the athletes suffer as a result of that. And I think, there's a whole shift around or towards servant leadership, right? Around recognizing that leadership exists to serve others. It's not there for you. It's not so you're on the marketing sort of material or whatever it might be. It's because you've got the skills and attributes to inspire the best in other people. And that requires you to often sacrifice a lot of your time, your effort, your money, whatever it might be. And so it requires you to be a servant of the people that you lead.
As I said earlier, only 10% of women in elite sport are coached by women themselves, which obviously opens up a whole debate around representation, and if she can't see it, she can't be it.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that from your perspective. What do you think the current issues still are? And from your experience, what sort of gender biases and systematic issues you have faced along your journey?
Yeah, it's wild, right? 10%. It's you can't tell me that that's an accurate snapshot of ability, right? And we all know it's not. Everyone knows it's not. What it is, though, I think, is an accurate snapshot of opportunity. And what we see quite often is that there are plenty of women in any sport that have the ability to coach at the highest level, or at all levels, but particularly at the highest level, but just don't have the opportunity to do so. We see a lot of circumstances where teams might be looking for new coaches, and so they just ask the other coaches if they know someone who's, able to step in, and of course those coaches know, former teammates or whatever it might be. And those guys might get an opportunity before we start thinking about, okay, well, what kind of attributes are we looking for here? How do we find the best candidate? Are there a lot of feminine attributes that might be a lot more handy for us in order to balance out the team and get a great decision-making sort of consensus? So I think it's the opportunity really that is missing in terms of getting women the opportunity and exposure at the elite levels to enable progression through to coaching at those higher levels. Partly, I think also is there's a great book called The Wife Drought by Annabelle Crabb.
Right.
And it talks about how, and I'm going to butcher this, Annabelle, I'm really sorry, but the gist of it really is so many mediocre men have been allowed to progress so far beyond what their capability has been in all aspects of business and sport and leadership, because they've had someone at home looking after the kids, paying the bills, doing all the house admin, taking care of everything, so that literally the one thing in their life that they have to worry about is their progression through their chosen industry. And I think that, a key determinant of this could be the fact that a lot of women don't have wives. Wives in the sense of, what Annabelle Crabb's talking about is someone at home who's looking after the kids, paying the bills, taking care of the admin, doing the housework, all of that sort of stuff. And so women are often still responsible for all of those things, as well as trying to progress their athletic career or their coaching career or their administration leadership position career, whatever it might be, right? And so they've got to do it all. And so at some point, something's got to give. Yeah. And quite often it's the job that they're not getting paid for or not getting paid very much for in sport that's the first thing to go, because there's not much money in it in women's sport. And so, there's got to be a trade-off at some point of what do I give up? Do I give up the thing that I love that has no money and that we can't afford to live off? Or do I give up everything else and try and go all in on this? So not an easy decision, but there's a couple of factors there. I also add there's no easy fix to this, right? Because there's a whole bunch of societal issues on top of that probably need addressing as well, around wage inequality, access to opportunities, mentoring, sponsorship, all of those sorts of things, right? But overwhelmingly, I see women drop out of particularly football coaching because the requirements are so great. The pay is so little. No one's doing it for the pay, but it means that they don't then have the time to dedicate to it because they're trying to work other jobs or make ends meet the other way, and they have so many other responsibilities in their lives on top of that. Yeah.
So then if I put you in the position of CEO of the AFLW for one day, 24 hours, what would be the first thing that you would change to try and get more women into coaching?
I think we've got to address a club's reluctance to look at flexible working arrangements in coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've looked at, we've seen one kind of coach forever, right? Which is the coach who does everything from pumping up the footies to, and I'm talking about, obviously at community level, which is what most football is in Australia, is community football. The coach does everything. They then pick the team. They move the magnets around the board. They talk to players. They mentor players. They do so much. And they're the figurehead of the club and all this sort of thing. Imagine if we started to see that differently and talk about things such as job sharing. Mm-hmm. Or other sort of alternate type working relationships, situations where, I don't know, we might work remotely or do football training remotely, or we might, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, but breaking the model, and I
yes.
think sort of allowing the clubs or encouraging clubs to feel like they don't have the pressure of that decision all being on them. Like, if we hire a woman and it doesn't work, then we're that club who shouldn't have hired the woman, or whatever it might be, but offering some sort of safety net. I have been quoted on the record as saying, thank God I'm not the CEO of the AFLW because there's a lot of problems and there's not many solutions.
Yes.
I don't think that the women's coaching gap is the biggest problem in the AFLW.
Mm-hmm.
I love some of the figures that are coming out recently from the Women and Girls Lead around participation in coaching around Australia. Mm-hmm. I think that nut is not cracked by any stretch, but the numbers are really encouraging. I think the most pressing thing is having a strategy and a vision for what AFLW is and what it should be, and bringing the people along on that journey. But the fact that we're seeing, how many female coaches are in the AFLW currently, right? So I feel like at that elite level, we look pretty good. It's the problems at that community coaching level.
Yeah.
Because with the greatest of respect, it's easy to coach at the elite level insofar as you have so much support around you,
and better
right?
resources.
Exactly. You got resources, you got support, you got assistant coaches, you got people who pump the balls up for you, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Where we need more women involved is community footy. That's where the impact is on girls and women around the country who are playing sport for a whole bunch of different reasons, very few of which aspire to play at the elite level. They're playing it for their own reasons. And that's where it's really important to get more women involved. And just incentivising clubs, I think, we can definitely do more around incentivising clubs to take on the perceived risk of hiring women, creating incentives around mentoring those women.
And I think even as a female athlete, by all means, some of my best coaches who I've respected the most have been male, but there's something unspoken about having a female coach, that there's that extra layer of relatability.
Yeah.
And I think in society, we still hold too much of a value on traditional masculine leadership, being that women don't have the assertiveness or the dominance to lead, which is outdated. And we had this conversation with Holly last week, a couple of weeks ago, in that also men and women can be feminine and masculine leaders. It's a behavior, not so much a gender.
Yeah.
But we still do hold too much value on that traditional masculine style of a coach. And I think, that if we want to keep women in sport, especially with that dropout rate of around 14 or 15, we sort of need to have more representation of females so that they can feel more comfortable and relatable, and also that they can also be an example for male coaches as well. We've got lots to learn from each other.
Yeah, exactly. And I hear, I had this merit discussion with someone yesterday, right? And around like, well, how do you properly assess merit if there's not equality of opportunity?
Yes.
Right. And, coming back to this 10% of elite level coaches are women, it's like, well, that, to me, that's an opportunity thing, not an accreditation thing or a merit thing, right? And so having equal access to the opportunities to to coach with those accreditations, or to gain those accreditations, or to gain experience in order to consolidate those accreditations, whatever it might be. I think that's what's lacking, is the opportunity, not the brain power or the sports experience or the sports knowledge. You know, oh, well, women don't know as much about sport because they haven't played it at the highest level, you know. Sword me. Like, please.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you, again, that question of how do you accurately assess merit if not everybody's had an equal opportunity to display their merit?
Yeah, I agree. I think development pathways are so underrated, and women can be mentored by the male coaches as well. Like, I think a lot of the men should actually be putting their hand up and say, I want to help, you know, mentor and coach the next generation of female coaches. And again, it's not they're going to take my job. It's let's work together to get the best for women in women's sports. That's
it. And, you know, if we truly consider leadership to be selfless, and, you know, servant leadership to be a genuine and authentic thing, then don't you want the best team around you, particularly in coaching, to get the best out of your team? Yeah. Right. You want the best, the brightest, the best mentors, the most connected people, the most technically competent people as well, but you want the best makeup of coaching team around you in order to get the best out of your players. And I think if you're shutting out 50% of the population as getting an opportunity to be a part of that, then I think that speaks a lot about your own leadership, maybe your own self-confidence, than it does about, you know, merit or opportunity or anything like that.
And I think also comes back to diversity. Like, you want a diverse team, because if you're surrounded by people who are just going to say yes to you, you're not going to push the boundaries and cause innovation. And I think you're just missing so much.
Or, you know, even asking different questions, asking non-football questions at the selection table, you know, like, well, what do you want to know that for? You know, understanding a player's mindset, understanding more aspects of the person than just the playing ability helps you. We know this helps you make better selection decisions, right? And results in better outcomes for athletes. So if we're only looking at athletes as these one-dimensional sort of facts and figures, stats kind of robots, because we as coaches are only considered to be that, then we're just not getting the best outcomes out of ourselves or our athletes.
Absolutely.
So that diversity of thought around how do I make the best selection decisions with the very best of information, you know, in order to get the best out of that individual and support them on their development plans and their own aspirations for playing or transitioning into coaching or whatever it might be, then I'm doing myself and the team a disservice.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the echo chambers that you sort of fall in, there's not growth, because like growth is obviously in discomfort. And if you're constantly being told that it's our way or the highway, you've got no new perspectives, you're just not going to grow or change.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing that really gets my goat is I talk to players who are consistently overlooked for selection at all levels. It's not just, you know, I'm not talking about any one club here. Overlooked for selection, and I say, well, what's the feedback been from your coach? And they say, well, the coach just says, keep doing what you're doing.
That's the worst bit of advice.
It's the worst, right? And because like, well, I'm doing what I'm doing and you're not picking me.
Not good enough.
So you know, again, coming back to coaches being able to have the skill set around really difficult conversations and being able to say to a player, hey, I really value you and you're worth more than just, you know, a name on a selection sheet, but you need to know you're not in the best 22, 3, whatever. And these are the things that you need to do to improve.
Yes.
Rather than just keep doing what you're doing. Your opportunity will come. Yeah. Like, how will it come if I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm not getting picked? Are you saying that someone else needs to get injured in order for my opportunity?
Yeah.
And that might be the case. It might be the case of you're not in our best, but we like the way you're training. And as soon as there's an opportunity might be through injury or omission of someone else or form of someone else, that's when you get your shot.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay, because at least then they know.
At least you know. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, communication, I know we say it's key, but it's so underrated.
It's hugely underrated to athlete well-being as
Yes.
well. You know,
Yep.
when athletes clearly, and look, some of them can't be told,
Yeah.
and I understand that. I absolutely understand that. But when a player really clearly knows where they stand, and they know what the steps are to further development or improvement or whatever it might be, and they feel like they're supported to get there,
Yep.
that's when you see the best results from those athletes.
Yeah. And it might even be a conversation of, look, in our current makeup of the team, we don't have a spot for you. And it gives them the liberty to then go and try in another team where they might absolutely thrive.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you see it a lot, you know, in TV sports, right? Where a player left one team because they weren't sort of either getting a game or weren't performing, couldn't sort of string a few games together or whatever, and they got to this new team and they're, you know, in the top 3 best and fairest, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that is just an environment thing, where sometimes you're going to perform better in other environments than the ones that you were in initially. But you know, giving people the opportunity to perform at their best by helping them understand what their role is and what doing their role well looks like, and them understanding the story or the impact of that role. You know, a lot of the coaches that I work with, we talk a lot about how to help players understand their role. And a lot of players that I've coached sort of understand what position they're in. They might be a centre half forward or a winger or whatever. That's really just a geographical starting position. It doesn't necessarily speak to the story of what's expected of you or your impact to the team or how you help the team or contribute to the team. And so helping them understand, you know, the position is where you start. The role is the story of how you help the team.
Yes.
And helping people understand the story of how they help the team is just so important. And as well as understanding what doing that role well looks like. Like, if you were doing your role well, it looks like this. This is the story of my role and its impact on the team. And I know that I'm doing it really well right now, or I know how to improve because I'm not currently doing it well enough.
Yeah. I love that. I coach a forward line, and of course forwards, all we care about is how many goals we kick.
Yeah.
And you've got girls coming up to you after a game absolutely disheartened because they haven't kicked a goal. But I said, as a centre half forward, the ball's going to go over your head all day. And your role is to try and lock it in. Your role is to assist in getting goals. And I absolutely hate people who are counting their own individual goals, because I don't care how many goals you get. It's a team goal. And there's so much more to footy and just sport generally than scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's, you know, there's players who count touches. I only got 26 this week and not 30. Or tackles, or, you know, some of these other things. There's that old saying, stats conceal just as much as they reveal.
Absolutely.
And it's, again, if I really clearly understand the story of my impact on the team when I do my role well, then I don't care that I didn't get 30 touches, because I understand that my role didn't require that of me. But the team got a whole bunch of goals that I may have directly or indirectly contributed to, and that's all that matters.
Exactly. And I guess that comes back to the values that you start at the start of the year, and your one team vision. What do you want as a team?
Absolutely.
Yes. And if it feeds into that, well, then you have played your role.
Definitely. And are we articulating that well enough as coaches?
Yes.
Does the team understand what the team's purpose or vision is? Does the team know what we're all striving for this year? Are we all in collective agreement, maybe at varying levels of satisfaction with, but in agreement of what the team's goal is or the team's purpose is that year, right? If you got half the team thinks we're going to win a flag this year and we absolutely are going hell for leather in order to, and the other half of the team says we understand exactly where we're at based on the context of our team in this competition, in this moment, in this year, and we understand that a great aspiration for us is to just make finals, you know, or to just improve on last year or whatever it might be, then you've got a real disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Because then there's a whole different response and reaction to adversity. You know, half of the team might be really satisfied with, you know, a loss potentially, because there were so many KPIs that showed great improvement, whereas the other half of the team's just super devo because that knocks us down percentage points and, we're not going to win the flag or whatever it might be. It's a silly example, but just that unity of purpose and that really clear understanding of what the team's trying to achieve and what my role within that is and how do I play that effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. You have opened Australia's only current women's sports bar, which is a safe space for women to go and watch women's sport.
Yeah, safe place for everybody to go and watch women's sport, right?
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about it is there's a misconception that the W Club is only for women, and it's absolutely not. It's for anyone who loves women's sport to come and enjoy women's sport in an environment where, it's not centred around the sale of alcohol or gambling or aggressive hypermasculine environments. It's just a cool, inclusive, safe place for you to come and just love the heck out of women's sports.
And I couldn't rate it highly enough. It was the location of 4TG's launch party, and everyone said how fantastic it was.
Unreal.
And so it's run by yourself and Tessa Levy, who is the Richmond's vice captain and former Olympian basketballer. So
two-time Olympian basketball.
An absolute champion in her own right.
Yep.
And I think you've already got such a strong network behind you through your various careers and backgrounds. And that sort of really comes through, I feel. You can feel it in the environment that people are there for a reason. They're there to connect. And congratulations on really pushing forward for women's sport and creating a space where we can go and celebrate it.
Thank you. And I think, that point about Tessa and I sort of being the founders of this is we're actually really just the custodians of this community, right? Community location or venue, right? But I think the difference is that this is a bar that celebrates women's sport that has been, or is currently being run, has been designed by women in sport. So, Tessa's storied history on the sporting field and my long involvement in sport at all levels brings an authenticity to it. I think that is lacking perhaps in other venues that try this sort of thing, and we've seen it sort of pop up in, and I'm not talking about the Ladies League in Sydney, but other venues that we've seen around Melbourne try and be the women's sports venue, when really it's just a sort of a commercial decision. I think the authenticity of us being behind it is what really shines through, and you can tell, I think, when you get there that this is a place that is new and we're learning lessons along the way, but is really genuine in what it's trying to achieve.
And I really like that you said it's inclusive to everyone who supports women's sport, because just saying it's just for women, that alienates 50% of the population straight away. And to grow and to promote women's sport, it's going to be a whole effort from both genders, all sexualities, everyone, and that is where we'll find the most progress. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's, if we made it exclusive, we're just creating the same thing again that we're rallying against, right? Is this exclusion of women, from enjoying sport or participating in sport or cheering for sport or whatever it might be. Is like if we were for women only, we'd just be creating the same thing. So we're absolutely inclusive of everyone, and in fact, we even show some men's sport.
Spoiler alert.
I know, spoiler alert. But, for various reasons, we don't show much of it, and we will never show it at the exclusion of women's sport. Sometimes there's just no women's sport on.
Yeah.
And also, there's a lot of men's sport that women really want to watch, and people really want to watch in environments that aren't hyper aggressive or whatever the case might be. So there will be some men's sport on, especially the grand final and the Super Bowl, because I love both of those things. So you will see some, but never to the exclusion of women's sport.
I love it. That's absolutely brilliant. Now, wrapping up, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell 16-year-old Liz? I
honestly wouldn't change a single thing that I've done. Obviously, like smaller things, I wish I hadn't said that, or I wish I hadn't done this, or whatever. But generally speaking, in terms of the big moving parts, I wouldn't change a thing. And so I would just sort of say to her, this is all going to turn out so much cooler than you ever imagined.
Mm-hmm.
So just ride the wave.
Hang in there.
Just you be you. You're great just as you are. Just keep going.
Love it. And what is one small but actionable thing that we can all do today to promote women's sport?
Show up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Show up, whether it's go to games, whether it's tweet about it, share an Instagram story, tell your mates to watch it, come to the W Club to watch it, whatever it might be. Show up in whatever way you're able to.
Mm-hmm.
A cool thing that I do at home is I turn on women's sport even when I'm not watching, if I've got other stuff to do. So
Get the ratings up.
When the ratings come
Love
up, just so I can sort of be a number and be counted, and just be a number, whether it's getting a $10, $15 ticket to the AFLW, whether it's watching it with your mates, just show up.
Show up. Very powerful. Now, in finishing in leadership, so if leadership is about leaving something behind for the next generation, what do you hope your journey shows young women, and not just about being athletes, but about stepping into roles such as coaches and leaders in sport and life, in work, families, careers, whatever it may be?
I hope that some of the stuff that I've been able to do, and some of the people I've been able to work with and talk to along this journey is that people or young women in particular are better able, through their connection with me, better able to understand their own strengths, their own leadership attributes, the characteristics that already make them great, the things that they already have within them that will make them exceptional leaders, and their ability to lead and influence regardless of, what their experience has been, or what team they're playing in, what level of sport they're playing at, that everyone can inspire the will and commitment of the people around them, regardless of title, and that we're far more capable of doing that than we think they are.
Wow, very powerful. We'll put that on a t-shirt too.
Okay, great. Trademark.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, honestly, for all the work that you're doing in building the next generation of female athlete leaders, and just not even athletes, just females. It's such an important role, and people do look up to you. Everyone in your network just says how incredible you are. So you're touching the lives of many, and we appreciate it.
Awesome. But thank you for what you're doing. For the change, for the future, for the girls. Like even just having the guts to do something like this is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. And don't edit this out, because this is exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about, that just doing something, just showing up for women's sport, right? And for women in sport, right? And your version of showing up is by starting this wonderful podcast. It's by expanding your network, by giving women and supporters of women in sport this platform and this opportunity to talk about it on your podcast, right? So this is your version of showing up. And so thank you, right? And so again, people don't need to see showing up as just, I've got to get a ticket to the game, I can't go to the game this weekend or whatever. Like, there are so many ways that you can show up for women's sport and for women in sport. Just find the way that you're able to get the most out of, or that you see as the most meaningful. So you've used your brilliant skills and attributes in starting this podcast. What do you have in your hand? What are your skills and attributes that will enable you to show up for women's sport and for women in sport? Find that and do that.
Wow. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt too. No, thank you very much. And speaking of showing up, show up to the W Club, watch all women's sport, and just give back to the incredible network that you're creating.
Wonderful. Thanks
Brilliant.
so much for having me.
Thank you very much.